Movies used to create culture, not just react to it. And if you've been following any type of movies the last couple of years, you notice that there's so many sequels, there's so many remakes, so many superhero movies. And I think audiences are getting slowly tired of it. You hear more and more people talking about why is there a remake of that? Why is there a sequel of that? Why can't we get some original movies? So I do think it's changing, but that's what movies used to do. They used to create cultural moments. If we think back even 2000s, you had Harry Potter, that was a huge moment in culture. Just that whole series, the books, everything that created, and then all the different type of shows around magic that came about from that. Same thing happened with Twilight. That was also huge because from that you had shows like Vampire Diaries, True Blood that came after that. So you have all of these things culturally that started happening after one of them happened. And that's, I think, what movies used to be, I think, better at than they are nowadays, is they took a little bit more risks. I know for some movies they wouldn't even get a wide cinema release right now, even though they did maybe in the 90s or the 2000s. I know one of my favorite movies, Good Will Hunting, who knows if that would get a wide release? Probably not. You don't see dramas getting a lot of marketing behind it and not a really big wide release. Even now, like this week or the last couple of weeks, it's been all about Deadpool versus Wolverine, which looks like a cool movie, but again, it's just the same kind of safe picks that are going on, like just superheroes or sequels, remakes, all the same thing. Just feels like they're regurgitating things. And I think they used to take more risks. I think because now a lot of these studios are basically owned by Wall Street, that they are playing it safer because they have people to answer to. They have to primarily focus on making a profit. So when your whole motivation is you have to hit these numbers or else, then it changes your decision making. You are going to play it safer, and that makes sense because you can't really take as much risk because you might get fired. So most of the people that are creating movies for the studios right now, they're not worried always about creating the best movies or creating these risky movies. That wouldn't make sense for a lot of them because if they do bad or they do one bad movie that does terrible, and they'll get fired. So most people, like anyone, are worried about their own survival, right? In this case, keeping their job. So if you take that away, then it would be different. And I think back in time, there used to be less of that. There used to be less of these studios owned by hedge funds or Wall Street, and that's something that's definitely happened a lot more these last 20 years. So you could take more risks. And even like if we think about culture now compared to then, I think you could take more risks then as well culturally, because we live in such a almost cancel culture or a culture that really shames other people for being different or having a different opinion, that it's hard to make the same type of movies. Even comedically, I think comedy movies take way less risks than they used to. They used to take way more risk. You had movies like Wedding Crashers, 40-Year-Old Virgin, movies like that now wouldn't get made anymore, just because people are afraid of getting fired and how the public will react to it, because there's more of an outrage culture. People are looking to be outraged about something. So that makes something like comedy extremely hard, which is already gonna say things that are maybe outrageous or politically incorrect. That's what good comedy is. So that makes it hard to make good comedy movies, and it makes it hard to make good original movies because you have to take so much into account now. Like if you're at the big studios, you're taking a lot into account. You're taking in the hedge funds, Wall Street, so you got to make a profit, so you got to play it safe, so you're probably going to go with established IP. And then on the other hand, they also have to look at culture right now, and it's like, okay, well, we don't want to get canceled, or we don't want all this negative PR or this outrage about this and this, so let's play it safe and let's do this, and then you don't take any risk. And I don't think good art doesn't take risk. Like good art does take risk. I think that's what's missing now, and there are some exceptions, and I think hopefully the studios start noticing that too. But you have studios like an A24, Neon, that are the exceptions to this, and they've had huge successes, which I think shows that audiences want that. They want something more risky. They want something more original. And A24 is a great example for that. They're not in the superhero movie making business. Their stories are all pretty original. Some are really out there original, and that's awesome. That's taking risks, and they've been a huge success. So I think it shows that there's a market for that. And hopefully some of these other studios will start looking at that, because even in terms of risk, I don't know if it's as much the case now that a superhero movie is less risky, for example. I think movies like Madam Web, which was a huge bust also financially for them, it's showing that there's not that much of a safety pick anymore. It's not like, oh, you make a superhero movie, you're good. No, you could lose a ton of money. So even if you're going risk aversion, it might even be less risky instead of spending 150 million on like this superhero movie that if it doesn't hit, you just lost a lot of money, because 150 million, they're also spending probably equal down P&A, so they're spending 200-300 million at least. So if that goes bad, they lose a lot. They could also spend 15 million on 10 movies for the same price, basically. So then you have 15 million, there's a lot of great movies that have come out for that price range. And if you think about A24, some of their movies have come in at 10 million or sub 10 million and have done 10x ROI and have been really well received. So I think there is a change happening, and I for one hope that that keeps changing. I know a lot of people I know and friends, they're also sick of the superhero movies and all the remakes and sequels, and I know we all want to see more original movies. And I think the only way that happens is if people stop seeing these movies, which is already happening. There's a lot less appetite for it, but the less you see those movies, the more there's going to be a need to take risks, because that's the only way they adjust. Wouldn't make sense if those movies are making a ton of money that they would change strategy. I think now they're forced to. Some of these movies aren't making as much money anymore or failing, so now they have to branch out. That's why you see a good example of this is rom-coms are making a comeback now, which I feel like there was a period where rom-coms weren't popular at all anymore, which in the 2000s was huge still, and then it kind of disappeared for a while, at least in terms of wide cinema release. Now they're making a comeback, and again, it was still reactive. Like it was one movie, I forget which one, and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of rom-coms coming out. And that's usually how it goes. Like someone sees the success of something, they think this is the safe way to go, this will work, let's lean into that. And usually when they start all leaning into that, it's kind of already like saturated or too late. So I think really, if you think about it, the least risky way of doing things is actually to take more risks. So that's my hope. I hope there's more studios like an A24, like a Neon. I know for me and for people I work with, that's our goal in making movies in the future, is to take more risks, to take more original stories, because that's what I want to see. And I think if you're creating art, the first thing you should focus on is not thinking about what the audience necessarily wants to see, because that's subjective, and it's really hard to gauge that because there's so many different segments of the population. So I think the best thing any artist can do, any filmmaker can do, is think, what do I want to see? So if you're a filmmaker or an artist or a musician or really anything, I wouldn't think about like, okay, what should I make for my fans or my audience? I think anytime you go that way, it's a mistake. And I know Rick Rubin famously talks about this a lot, and I love what he says and I love his books, so definitely check him out. But he says, make what you want to see in the world. What would you want to listen to? What would you want to see? That's what I want to do, and that's what I want to focus on, because whatever you like, like me, whatever I like, there's going to be a lot of other people that also like that. So that's why that's maybe the safest way to do it and the best way to do it, and then we'll have more original art. So I hope that the future, and I think it'll start changing that direction again, but that's what I hope. If you guys have any questions or any experiences with this, or any type of notes on, oh, like I've seen this movie before or I haven't seen this movie before, then please leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about the kind of movies that are coming out right now, what kind of movies you're into. Would love to hear about that. All right, thanks. I'll see you guys next week.